All right. So happy Monday. Couple of things. One, I'm still working on grading your performance finals. So those are going to go in the grade book soon. Also, if you just hear anything in the background, it's just my dogs. I apologize. They decided to eat really loudly this morning. So if you open up this Google Slides right here, okay, we're going to start off with mental math. Okay, so how would you go about solving these? Okay, so go ahead and take a second, pause, and just kind of solve these in your head. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about them. All right, so if I have the same denominator here, then that means that this guy right here is going to be x equals 5. So because that would mean 5 over 12 equals 5 over 12. And probably most of y'all got that one. On this next one, since the denominator is not the same, I would multiply by 2. Okay, so that would give me 2x over 4 equals 3 over 4. So then in order to solve for x, I would take 2x, set it equal to 3, and then divide by 2, and that would give me x equals 1 1/2 or 3/2. Okay. That one's a little bit more of a stretch, but you do need to understand that you have to have common denominators in order to solve. Over here, I'm going to set, since the top is the same, I'm going to set the bottom equal to each other. And then I would solve. So if I took the square root of both sides, I would get x equals, now this one you could actually have two different things. You could have positive or negative 2. So it could have 2 answers since it's a quadratic. And then over here, if I want to have 6 in the denominator, okay, this one's going to be a little tricky. I'm going to have to use the cross multiplying in order to get this one. Okay, so what I mean by that is, I think your teachers used to call this the butterfly method back in like 6th or 7th grade. So you would do x times 1, which is going to give me x, and 6 times 3. So 6 times 3 is 18. So x would equal 18. Okay. And again, if you're ever questioning this, you can just plug it back in and it should be the same on both sides. All right. So that moves us into what we're going to talk about today. Hopefully this is a little bit of a review. I think y'all started doing this in January. But basically we're going to solve rational equations and then check for extraneous solutions. So again, if you've seen this before, great. We're going to go over rational and radicals in this next unit. So what are the solutions to x squared equals 1? Well, if I took the square root of both sides, I would get x equals positive and negative 1. How could I go about solving this by inspection? When we use the word inspection, that means without having to do any math, okay? So what I would do here is I would notice that they have the same denominator. So I would just get rid of the bottom, and I have x squared equals 1. And then I would solve. So that would give me, on the next problem, x equals positive and negative 1. Now, how does the denominator influence the solutions? All right, well, if I took 1, positive 1, and I plugged it in here, that would give me x squared over 0, right? Or 1 over 0. Well, if you plug 1 divided by 0 in your calculator, you're going to get error. That means it's undefined, okay? And that's like a big no-no in math, okay? So you can't have 0 in the denominator. So 1 would not be an answer, okay? 1 can't be a solution because it's an extraneous solution. Okay, so you would not include, sorry, I should probably just erase. You would not include 1. Okay, so your final answer would be x equals negative 1, because if I plugged in negative 1 in the bottom, it would not give me 0. Okay. Now, when we have unlike denominators, okay, so the two denominators obviously are not the same. What you're going to do is I would always factor. I always start off by doing rational functions by factoring. So I'm going to take out an x, and I'm left with x minus 4 equals 1 over x minus 4. So what's the difference between this denominator and this denominator? Well, this one has an x. So I'm going to take an x on this side and multiply on the top. and the bottom. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this stuff. So this would give me 4 over x times x minus 4 equals x over x times x minus 4. Now the denominators are the same, so I would cancel. So x would equal 4. However, remember what we said in the last slide. If I take 4 and I plug it into this equation, that would give me an undefined answer. So that's not going to work, right? So there would be no solution in this instance, okay? Because this guy would be an extraneous solution. Okay. Now, I know I'm talking fast, so make sure that if I'm talking too quickly, go back and review, okay? So solve the equation, be sure to check for extraneous solutions. Okay, in this instance, this guy doesn't have a denominator. I mean, it does, it's 1, but you know, I'm gonna have to cross multiply in this instance. So I'm gonna multiply like I did on that last one for the warm up. So this is gonna be 4x plus 3 times -6 equals 16x squared minus 9 times 1, which is just gonna be that. I'm gonna distribute this out and then solve. So this will give me -24x minus 18 equals 16x squared minus 9. So in this instance, I'm going to get everything to one side. So then I can solve using factoring. Okay, so I'm going to move everything to one side and add 18 and 18. Okay, so let me rewrite this in a different color. Okay, so this will give me 16x squared plus 24x. -9 plus 18 is going to give me +9. And so now I'm going to factor. Okay, so what I would do is I would say, all right, remember this is where you do A times C in the top and B in the bottom. You might have learned factoring a little different. That's okay. Do whatever method works best for you. But 16 times 9 is going to give me 144. So what two numbers can I multiply together to give me 144, but add together to give me 12? That's 12. Sorry, 24. That would be 12 and 12. I'm going to do the slip and slide method if you've never seen this before. If you have questions on this, just let me know. But you would divide by 16 on both sides. Okay. And I would simplify here. So both of these are divisible by 4. So this will give me 3/4. Now, since this isn't a whole number, I'm going to take the bottom, move it to the top, push this guy over. So I would write this as 4x plus 3. And this would be the same thing. So 4x plus 3. All right. So if I solved this, I would take one of these and set it equal to 0. And then I would solve. So I would subtract 3 and then divide by 4. So x would equal -3/4. Now, if I took that and I plugged it back in here, I would get 0, right? Okay, so that's a problem. So if I took -3/4 and I plugged it back into this bottom piece, because I don't care about the top, I care about the bottom, then I would get an extraneous solution. So I would get undefined. So this guy is going to have no solution. Okay. All right. So how do the equations below differ than what we solved? How can you solve the equations? All right, so since we have the bottom pieces are all the same on this one, I can just go, okay, 1 plus 2 equals x. Well, 1 plus 2 is 3. Boom. On this next one, they don't all have the same denominator. So I have to multiply by a common factor to make the denominators all the same. So this would be 5 minus 4x equals 7. And then I could solve. So I would subtract 5. And so this gives me -4x equals 2. Divide by -4. So x would equal -1/2. So here's a new one. All of the denominators are different, okay? So if all of the denominators are different, then what I'm gonna do is multiply by the thing they're missing. Okay, so remember how I said factor the denominators? Okay, so I've got x over x minus 3 plus x over 2 equals 6 times x over, and I can take a 2 out from here, and that's giving me 2 times x minus 3. So then I want to ask myself, what pieces are they missing? Okay, so for instance, right here we got 2 times x minus 3. Well, this is missing a x minus 3. So I'm going to multiply in the top and the bottom. Over here, this is missing a 2. So I'm going to multiply that out and rewrite this. 2x plus x squared minus 3x equals 6x. And then I would solve, okay? In this instance, I always just leave off the bottom because I'm going to solve in the top and then kind of go from there. So I'm going to move everything to one side and combine like terms. So this will give me x squared minus x equals 6x. I'm going to move everything to the other side. So that's going to give me x squared minus 7x equals 0. So if I solved, that would give me, if I took x squared minus 7x and kind of separated it into 2 factors and set them both equal to 0 and solved, I would get x equals 7 and x equals 0, which both of those would work in this instance. Now, the question is, does it actually give you a solution? They should, if you did all of your math right. But really we were focused on, whether or not it would give us a 0 in the denominator, which if we plug both of those back in, it wouldn't. So both of these would be a solution. And I'm done. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to do some practice. You're going to open this up. Okay. And you're just going to kind of work on this. No, I'm not taking this for a grade, but this is good practice to actually, yeah, go ahead and turn this in. Sorry. Go ahead and turn this in and follow the directions on this page. Okay. So you can create your own. So basically you want to get 50 points. So you're going to come onto this page and you're trying to total up 50 points. So you could do 2 of these entrees and then 1 of these sides, or you could do all of these and a couple of these. You can do whatever one you want. Okay. You should be able to do the appetizers pretty easy. So just be mindful of that. And then you're going to turn that into Mr. O when you're finished. Okay. We're not going to worry about this one unless you need some extra practice. I just included this just in case. But it's okay. You don't have to do this one. And then the next piece that I'd like for you to look at, there we go. We're gonna go back. If it'll load. Okay, so next part that we're gonna look at, again, this might be a review for y'all. That's okay. I'm just trying to figure out where you're at. Okay, so concept cartoon. Jared and Sarah are discussing the solutions to the equation. So the solution to the equations are -1 and -2. The solution to the equation is -2. Okay, who do you agree with? Okay, so I would agree with Sarah because if I took -1 and plugged it into this equation, I would get 0 in the denominator. And that's not a possibility. So it should be -2. Okay, so Sarah is correct because Jared forgot extraneous solutions. Okay, so find the zeros of the function. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to set this equal to 0. And then we're going to solve. So set this equal to 0. And then we solve. So 1 over x plus 2 equals 3. Because I would move that 3 to the other side. And then I would cross multiply. So using that butterfly effect. So this is going to give me 3 times x plus 2 equals 1. And then I would distribute. And then I would isolate this. So move this to the other side. Divide by 3. So x would equal negative 5/3. So whenever it says solve for the zeros, you're just getting x by itself, just like what we did on the last one. Okay, the school art club at a large high school is in charge of designing school t-shirts and getting them printed this year. A local business charges $35 to set up their t-shirt printing. How many shirts must the print to make the cost? How many shirts must they print to make the cost per shirt be $5 or less? Okay, so really quick, it says C of X represents the cost per shirt. So cost per shirt needs to be $5 or less. Okay, so let's just say that it equals $5. So we set this equation equal to $5. And then you would solve. Okay, so in this instance, we would cross multiply like we did on the last one. So we would get 5x equals 35 plus 4.25x. And then we would subtract 4.25x. And that would give us 0.75x equals 35. I would divide by 0.75 on both sides. And that would give me x equals 46.66. But since we can't have half of a shirt, we're going to round that up to 47. So I'd have to at least print 47. And so basically what this is saying is, you know, if you go on Amazon and you buy something, if you buy it in bulk, it's a little bit cheaper. That's all this is saying. The price goes down per shirt if you buy in bulk. Okay. All right. So I'm going to include this in a new video. So again, you are turning in this document right here. Okay, so you're picking 50 points worth of problems. It doesn't matter which ones you do. Just make sure you write out the problem. Okay, and then I'll catch you in the next video.